All right. Hey, what's going on, family? Pray that everybody's doing well. Welcome to another edition of Broken for This. This is the channel where we give voice to the voiceless, where we talk about some difficult uh, things, where we, especially mental health. The vision behind Broken for This is helping you to heal, learn, and grow after experiencing trauma, difficulty, hardship, mental health issues, and it's a passion of mine, something that I am so that I really want to that I poured my life into because I know how often we deal with issues and then we don't talk about them, and those things fester and become worse and worse and worse. And my story is complicated, it's difficult, painful at times, but ultimately the struggles that I've gone through have prepared me for this. And I want to be able to help you to come through whatever it is that you've gone through and be stronger for it. To see that your imperfections have carved you like a key, that you can help unlock the hearts of people like you. But you can't do that if you don't face down some of those difficulties. You can't conquer what you refuse to confront. So here at Broken for This, that's what we do. It's going to be going forward. It really is important to me that we continue to have these kind of conversations. Uh, Taking a little break, I was dealing with RSV, still trying to get it out of my system. So I took a little bit of a break, but I'm back and looking forward to um, sharing this next one with you. We're back to the series on my letters to my biological father, Ed Collins. And I'm going to be sharing with you tonight the second letter in that series. And I'll tell you now that my intention behind this is at the end of all of this, I intend to publish these letters as a book. Um, but if you're interested in the draft letters, let me know. Shoot me an email, message me, drop a comment in here right now. Let me know if there's a particular letter that you would like to have, and I'll happily send it to you. I'm not trying to get famous off of this. I'm hoping that my story helps someone else. And if that someone is you, I'm happy to give that to you. Um, but I do intend to self-publish this book as the time gets a little closer. I'm just making sure everything is working the way it needs to. If you're watching live, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. It really means a lot. This is some um, difficult work. It's it's not a fun thing necessarily, but I know it's a necessary thing to talk about some of this stuff. And I want to be able to um, I don't know the way that this started. Anyway, I'll tell you. The way that this began was as a project that my therapist Stephanie put me up to. Uh, the reference trauma, as you call it, one of the earliest traumas in my life is my dad's absence, and then his popping up here and there, causing chaos and havoc in my life, and then disappearing again. And so, one of the things that she suggested I do was to have some conversations internally, through journaling that I never got to have, and that has become what's this series of letters to my father, and they follow my life, and at various points, significant events in my life, and I'll probably end right around this time, right here as I've been pastoring for a few years, and also because I've healed a whole lot more and I have a lot more perspective than I did in the very beginning. So I am working through that letter by letter. Again, big ups to Stephanie Norris, my therapist, who has been there for me, and to Ashley, my wife, to my mom and my family, those of you who have been with me through this entire journey. I don't know how I know that I wouldn't be able to have done this without you. So thank you guys so much. Um, I'll say if you're in the comments, if you drop a comment, I'll probably come back to it once I finish the letter. And if you have got questions or things like that, we'll cover them after I read the letter. So I'm not ignoring you. I promise I'll come back to it. Um, This is on live on Facebook, on YouTube, and as soon as I'm done, it will be published to Spotify as a audio and video podcast. So you can find this afterwards. And if you're watching this after the live broadcast, thank you so much for supporting. If it's helpful to you, I hope that you'll share it with somebody. This isn't just about bashing my dad. The point is more that I want to be able to motivate people who are in all kinds of situations like that. The last time we did a conversation with April Bell of Angels Haven. She's a survivor of domestic violence, and we really focused on survivors of violence. But I also am hoping that this series brings out some ideas that are beneficial to people who have been abusers, people who have been abused, and their friends and family. So wherever you are in there, and from a statistical standpoint, you're one of them. You really are. Even if you don't know it, you likely know someone who has been abused. And so I just want to give you some tools to be able to go through that. And if you're like me, the child who's gone through and had these kind of questions that you didn't know how to answer, then I think the series is really going to be helpful for you. So today I am sharing a letter, and it is called Family Portrait. Family Portrait. Interesting one. Really, really good conversations in therapy about this one in particular. I'll just share a little bit of that afterwards. But let's start. I'll start with the letter. It is 1989, 6 years old when this is going on. So let's start. Family Portrait. Dad, things were weird for a little while after Kim and I found those pictures of Mom, but we were able to move forward. I had so many questions, but most of them only you could answer. You were not around to give any clarity about what happened between you and Mom, or why you didn't want to talk to me. I started searching for those answers on my own, but most of that search led me nowhere. Thankfully, I had a great family who showed me all the love I could ever ask for. In fact, I don't think I realized how different our family was until I started going to school and spending time with other families. In elementary school, it seemed like we were always talking about our families, whether as an icebreaker in the beginning of the year or at various times during the year, like on holidays. I remember having an assignment to draw pictures of our families, and I immediately felt insecure. My teacher asked us to make sure to draw everyone in our house, including our parents and siblings. When we completed our drawings, we had to stand up and share our pictures with the class. It seemed to me that everyone else could just start drawing without a second thought. For me, it wasn't so easy because I was suddenly aware how atypical my family really was. In particular, I didn't know where to draw you in the picture or whether to draw you at all. I didn't want to lie and say you lived with us, especially since my classmates had a decent chance of finding me out one day if we had any events involving our families. At the same time, I didn't want to open myself up to uncomfortable questions about why I'd left off my dad. What was I supposed to do? Tell everyone about you and Mom and the pictures? I'm supposed to tell everyone that you beaten Mom within an inch of her life while she was pregnant with me? That's why you didn't live in our house? I decided to simply draw the members of my family household as they were. There was Grandma, Mom, Kim, and me. I waited for my name to be called with anxiety bubbling within me. To my surprise, my presentation went by without incident. No one looked shocked or asked me anything about my fatherless family picture. Still, I was left with a startling reality. I didn't have a dad in my life. And even though I didn't know you, I felt like I was somehow incomplete. The more time I spent with my friends' families, the more inadequate I began to feel. I watched my friends playing sports with their dads or talking about doing guy stuff together. Suddenly I felt like the odd kid out. I spent my formative years with Grandma, Mom, and Auntie Vindia. I wondered what else I was out on because you weren't there. People often talk about how there were some things that only a father can teach his children. So I began to worry that I'd never have the opportunity to learn those lessons. I didn't even know what I didn't know. I didn't feel at all comfortable telling anyone about these feelings. I'd tell you, but you were still in this frightful entity. You weren't available anyway. I didn't want to tell mom either. I thought it would hurt mom, grandma to think I was sitting around thinking about you. Didn't imagine telling them about it. What would that sound like? Hey, mom, I appreciate the great life we have with you, but I feel like my life is incomplete because I'm not close to the man who almost killed us. That was ridiculous. It didn't even make sense to me. My solution was to hold these feelings in. I even stopped asking mom questions about you for a while. I pretended like I wasn't jealous of my friends and family members who had fathers in their lives. I pretended that the love of my uncles was all that I needed. I pretended that I didn't think about you at all. None of that was true. I wondered what life would be like for me if we were all still together like a normal family. In truth, I wasn't certain whether you were able to meet my largely undefined expectations. I was so frustrated with myself for missing a man who was a stranger to me. Even though I knew so little about you, I imagined that if you ever came back into my life, I would be able to welcome you. I played that scenario out in my head over and over. You'd call and ask to see me and Kim. We'd run out to meet you. You'd try to apologize for not being there, and we'd tell you that all we wanted was to know you. Yeah, the soundtrack to that kind of interaction was Quincy Jones, Tevin Campbell singing Tomorrow, Better You, Better Me. Oh, yeah. Then you'd teach me how to throw a football and maybe take me to a ball game. Mom and grandma could forgive you, so could I. I'd only seen pictures, but they lived it. All I needed was one chance. We attended church often. I remember messages about how God could do anything if you had enough faith. Grandma prayed with us every night, but I often took a few minutes and prayed secretly for you to come back into my life. I just couldn't understand why those prayers went unanswered. Didn't God want me to be complete? Didn't He want me to be happy? Didn't He want to see our family reunited? I wished my Heavenly Father would help me connect with my earthly father. In hindsight, it was a dizzying series of events. In the earliest parts of my life, you were more of an idea to me than you were a person. After we found the pictures of mom beat up, you were dangerous, a suddenly present threat. Once I started to think of your potential paternal influence, you were the answer to my prayers. I guess it's more accurate to say the idea of you was the answer to my prayers. I wanted a way to feel less worried about whether I'd have everything I needed to grow into a good enough man. Like everyone said, there were some things only a dad could teach his son. In my mind, you were the easy answer. Mom's kind words also rang in my mind. Even though you'd hurt her so badly and left the matter unresolved, she wouldn't talk bad about you. When we come across pictures of you in photo albums, she would still say nice things about you. She talked about your great singing voice, your culinary ability, and your wonderful sense of humor. I refused to believe mom would marry a monster, and I knew she wouldn't keep the door open for someone who would hurt us. No, you had to have redeeming qualities. The stage was set for your return. I never considered at that time that you were fighting your own emotional, psychological, or spiritual battles while I was doing the same. It's difficult for a child to conceptualize the feelings of another person, especially in a situation as complex as ours. It never occurred to me that you might be ashamed and anxious, just like I was. Adults had it figured out. That's what I thought. I thought we were just a conversation away from wiping the slate clean and starting fresh. You'd give us a plausible explanation for the last few years, impart some fatherly wisdom, we'd be good. That wasn't how it worked out, though. Nope. The phone kept ringing, and it wasn't you. We talked to your parents, your siblings. They didn't seem to know much more about you, why you were keeping such distance between us. Because of that, I considered Christmas without you a lost opportunity for a reunion, year after year. In some ways, I missed out on the joy of some of the greatest moments of my life because I was looking for you. I suppose, nothing else, we had that in common. Sincerely, David. So that's letter number two. Not as traumatic in terms of description of violence, but one of the things that stood out to me as I go back and read this, I wrote it 2 or 3 years ago now. Um, One of the things that my therapist pointed out to me is how much anxiety I had, as a young kid, how much my mind was working overtime to make sense of some senseless situations. Um, it is not, normal is a difficult word, but it isn't normal. I'll say it for a 5, 6, 7-year-old kid to be having these deep thoughts, conversations with themselves about their worthiness and their being incomplete. Lots of families had all kinds of issues. From my perspective, it was, everybody was looking at me and was thinking, oh, look at him. He must be soft. He must, he's not really a man's man. He'll never be a man's man because he doesn't even have a dad. But the truth was, obviously, I look back on it now, there were other people whose families were every bit as complicated as mine were or more. Um, in church we went to, I think back now, and there were a lot of fatherless families in church. I didn't know if everybody had a dad who was wild and absent, or dads were just weren't coming to church. But when you spend your time um, in your head, like I did, like I still sometimes do, it's common for us to see the world, with us as the main character, and it's like Stephen King's, Carrie. Everybody's gonna laugh at you. You're gonna be the center of attention. And there's a psychological term called imposter syndrome. It's this idea that people who suffer from chronic anxiety have a fear of everyone seeing through their mask, everyone seeing that they're really just a fraud, and that one day the curtain's going to get pulled back, like the Wizard of Oz, and see that I'm really just a shivering, sniveling, incomplete child, and everyone's going to think less of me. You identify with that? Now that I think back to it, with the benefit of years of therapy, I realize how unhealthy that was for me. Um, and it wasn't, I don't blame anybody for that. That's just how it was. Um, I don't think my mom or grandma would have really known what to say. They were dealing with things, and they were dealing with stuff their own way too. I remember talking with my sister Kim. She's 2 years older, and there would be times, that I would be talking about. I would just mention kind of offhand and try to see, what she thought about stuff like this. Um, you know, um, Kim, what do you think about, dad, about us not having dad around? Don't you think it'd be great if he would show up one time? And what really struck me is that Kim was mostly like completely disinterested. Like she couldn't possibly care any less. And I thought that was wild. Um, there's the picture that I was talking about. I'll put it up here so you guys can see it. Oh, there it is. There's our family picture. I think I'm maybe 3, Kim's 5, and there's my mom, my grandma. I miss you, grandma. Um, that's probably, I don't know how. I'm sure at 6 years old, I'm not a very good illustrator now, so I'm sure it didn't have that Olin Mills kind of quality. But you know, it's there is. I noticed now looking back how much I was in my own head, how much I was worried um, about what what people would think of me. I still carry some of that around. Um, April dropped a comment. Hey, April, love you, sis. So many of us have suffered from the lack of love from an absent parent, or with a present parent who wasn't loving enough. That's yeah, and April, that's one of the things that I don't think I really put enough thought into. I'm not saying just kids just don't know. I don't think it even occurred to me at the time, April, that my dad was going to be anything but super dad. He um, started drinking really heavily shortly after he and mom got together, and hid it from mom really well. She didn't even know he was drinking like that. And for the next 25 years or so, he was in an alcohol induced haze most of the time. Um, so, I had this idealized picture of what he was going to be like, and he was going to be the thing that was going to make our family healed, and we were going to be better and feel good. But that really wasn't true. Truthfully, I did have a tremendous amount of love. My grandma kept an open door for family members, and there was times when we would have all kind of folks in her big old house. My different uncles and aunts and cousins would be living with us sometimes, and I never, if I look back on it, I never lacked love and encouragement, support, protection, and I had some really strong male figures in my life, and my uncles and things like that. Even early on in this part of my life, where I was still very young. Um, but it's hard to see that when you're so focused on one person. And that's why I think another one of the motivators that I had to write this book of letters is that if you are a parent and you haven't been in your child's life yet, today, if you're if you're healthy and you've done the work, and you have been you know doing what you can to be a positive influence in that child's life, I just want you to hear what it feels like for a kid to not know their parent and to not have an answer from their parent about why they're not around. Kids have this innate ability to blame things on themselves. And I'm hoping, I'm praying that my story maybe helps you if you've been dealing with what some of the things my dad was. He was dealing with all kinds of issues, his depression and alcoholism and significant anger issues, unresolved trauma from his young life. He had a lot of pride and shame that he felt, and guilt too from what he had actually done. Um, but I'm hoping that you can hear, mom or dad, uh, that while you're going through your own stuff, and I get it, that your children are still trying to answer questions that kids shouldn't have to be asking themselves. And even if you're not going to be there, being able to have a conversation, I think about how helpful it might have been to just have an answer. His silence, my dad's silence, was absolutely deafening. And having an answer to what was going on with him might have been helpful. I didn't get that answer until after he died. And I was, in my 30s by then. So, you know, I'm not trying to force relationships back together where you got an unhealthy situation. But it is something to think about, something to pray about. Maybe it'll be a motivator to you to get it together. so that you don't have to. Uh, and if you're someone who was like me, who was thinking these things, one of the things I learned is that I was better than I thought I was. I had more than I realized, and I was, this forged some strength in me. I had some unhealthy coping skills and mechanisms, but it really made me a stronger person. It made me the kind of person who people wanted to come up and talk about deep stuff with because I was always ready to talk about it. I was always ready to have a, a thoughtful conversation, even really young. That seemed like a great thing at the time. Now I look back and I think, whoa, I was thinking way too grown for a kid. But yeah, it's real true, April. A lot of us, it doesn't. It's not just the parent is not there. Sometimes it's the parent who is there that you don't get an instruction manual on how to deal with trauma just because you have a child. How about that? Kayla Clocky says, "You're an amazing human being. Sending hugs to you." Thanks, Kayla. I really appreciate you. Kayla and I were stationed together in Okinawa back in the early 2000s, 33rd AMU. Um, I got some letters about the 33rd that'll come up in the coming months, and I think it'll be. I think you might find them interesting. When I come to it, I'll let you know when I'm getting ready to do one. It talks about some of my time in the military because yeah, Dad would pop up here and there. April says, I can definitely identify with your story. My dad wasn't in my life due to drugs and died when I was 10. So many unanswered questions. Yeah, man. And the one of the hallmarks of anxiety is unanswered questions because we have a tendency to ask why. And when we don't have an answer, especially as kids, we we supply the answer that makes the most sense. And for kids, that's often it's my fault. I should be doing something. I'm defective. I don't know how many times I wondered, does dad think I'm not good enough? Does he not love me? Does he not care about us? Is he ashamed of us? Does he know that I haven't had a male figure in my life, so I'm not going to be much of a man, not worth the investment. All kind of crazy stuff that I'll be thinking. I don't mean crazy in a crass way. I just mean in hindsight, like, dude, yeah, I was a kid. I don't know, but it it can be difficult to deal with that sort of thing. Now I look back on it, and I'm happy to share it with you guys because I know that I'm not the only person who was thinking this kind of stuff, who was going through that kind of stuff. But at the time, we're talking about the 80s. Therapy wasn't a thing. And even now, a man who's willing to talk about his feelings and emotions, he would call you soft, gay, whatever, feminine, for speaking up about that kind of stuff. So, it's I'm really grateful that our society has gotten to a place where we do not stigmatize people getting help in the way that we used to. We still got a lot of work to do, especially in among Black people in America. Really, we got to do better. So many churches, um, and I think some of them with good intentions, uh, but I think also we've got to do a better job of. And as a pastor, this is something that I am keenly aware of in my sermon prep. It's something I think about in every Bible study lesson. It's something I think about when I have a conversation with someone, when I'm going to be counseling a couple or a family. A lot of times, these kind of churchisms that people say can have some really, really harmful effects on children and on families in general. One of the things I remember hearing over and over and over and over in churches, and you saw it on sitcoms, on movies, was, and I said it a couple of times in this letter. People would say there's some things that only a dad can teach his son. And a woman can't teach a man how to be a man. A man's got to be there to do that. And I heard that in church and in conversations so many times. And we've really stopped or at least take stock of what we're saying and consider the impact that those words have on people who are dealing with issues with a parent who's not there. What, like April's dad, not only was he dealing with abuse, with substance abuse, but he passed away when she was 10, so she didn't even have access to him. And we, especially those of you who are who talk for a living, if you're a preacher, check it, man. Be careful. Be careful what you say from the pulpit, because I remember hearing that over and over and over. Something only a man can teach a son, and you, you got to be there, because how's he gonna know how to be a man? And every time I heard that, it was like a punch in the gut. Oof, I'm never gonna be much of a man. I don't have that thing, and obviously that wasn't true. That only a man can teach a man how to be a man. If my dad had been around in those first years while he was alcohol addicted and angry, I would have so much more trauma. I might not have been alive if my mom had left that night. He nearly killed us with his bare hands. She was pregnant with me when he beat her nearly to death. And I didn't know that. That changed the way that I saw God for a while, because I was praying every night that God would fix my daddy's heart and bring him home so he could be in my life, so that I could learn how to throw a tight spiral. He was a football player. He played in college and in the pros. He was on the Jets for a little while. I was like, man, that's a man's man. I need that. Oh yeah. And when people are saying that if you don't have that, you're not really, people don't think about what they say. And that really was painful to me. So I just, as a pastor now, as someone who gets up before you guys, a lot of you who are in the chat right now, you listen to me preach and teach. That's something that colors the way that um, that I have to think about, because what you say as a spiritual authority, what you say as an adult to children, they hear it differently than you intended it. Ashley says speaking in absolutes is a dangerous thing. Only a Sith thinks in absolutes. That's what they said in Star. Only a Sith thinks in absolute, even though that's an absolute. I'm just playing. But truly, words do have some real impact. Jordan says, "What do people say when you wish?" Can you rephrase that for me, Jordan? I'm trying to understand what you mean. That question, I'll absolutely come back to it. April says, "I praise God for your transparency. I'm glad you're healing and telling your story. Your past did not dictate your future. You're a great example of love. It makes you an amazing pastor." Listen, April, that's something I really appreciate you saying that. That's something that it really it's very recent in the last few years that I'm able to hear and believe about myself, because I really did spend most of my life, from as young as I can remember to an adult, thinking the exact opposite, that I was fatally flawed, not going to be enough. So I really appreciate that encouragement. And people ask me how I got from there to here. Years of therapy and the grace and mercy of God, and really just you know, being willing to talk about some of these things when I saw that most people weren't. It really was helpful. But I love you, April. Thank you so much for being there. Oh, Ashley's watching. She says, "Thank you for sharing your gift with the world. This platform. I'm so proud of you. I love you, babe." I'm so grateful. Ashley and I, we got together. One of the things I told her is, like, I'm an emotional being. I will cry in a minute. I want to talk about feelings. I don't want to hear the new, the women want to talk about feelings, men want to talk about facts. That ain't me. And I remember telling Ashley, like, this is before we'd even gone on our first date. It was like, listen, if you think that that's not manly, then we don't need to be together. Because I know who I am, and I appreciate you, babe. So, yeah, I'm just making sure I get through the other comments on here that I cover everything. Yeah. So yeah, the pain of a broken family. I now that I look back on it, I see things completely differently. I look back at this picture that's up here, and I don't feel like my family was broken at all. We were just different, but everybody was different. That's the surprising revelation is that no family is perfect. No family's got it all together. Nobody's great. My grandma used to say all the time, "Don't be looking at other people's houses and wishing you lived there. You don't know what kind of hell goes on behind those walls." And that was so true. And in spite of the fact that that I was dealing with anxiety at a young age, and feeling what I was feeling about my dad, and I had a great group of loving people around me, and I'm grateful for that. A lot of people didn't have that. I don't know where I'd be without the incredibly strong women who were the core of my life so early on, and and the men, friends of my friends' dads, my uncles, and those who were in my life. I had a whole lot more than I realized I did. But I do. I said late in the letter, there were a lot of holidays, birthdays that I really missed out on the joy of because I was looking around for dad to pop up, surprise me, like roll up like Publishers Clearinghouse, knock on the door, and like I just knew it was gonna happen. Y'all, all the times I thought about that, I ought to be writing Hallmark movies because I got all the endings like down pat. But no, now I've got a lot of peace about that. Now I realize that I am enough, period. Now I realize um, that the experiences that I had, the things that I had, the things that I didn't, that my dad's absence, that God used that situation to forge me. Not that God wanted my dad to be an alcoholic and be absent. I'm not saying that. But in spite of that, Romans 8:28 says that we know that in all things God works together for the goodness of those, for the good of those who love him and are called according to his purpose. So, when I was looking for God to do one thing, he was doing something completely different. And now in hindsight, I can say truthfully that I'm grateful for for all that I have, and for these experiences, and for it has, how it shaped me. As she said, we still together. Yeah, man. Love you, boo. um, yeah, but so the parent, think about the impact that your absence is having. And if it's not appropriate for you to be there, but consider the impact that your silence is having. And as ashamed as you are, just consider what your family is trying to figure out. You know what I'm saying? To the child of the one who's like me, feeling fatally flawed, broken. Maybe some of you are feeling like that now. I know a lot of adults who never really grew up because they felt this kind of thing their whole lives. You are not alone. You are not the only person who felt like that. You're wrong about you. You are valuable. You're worth it. And there are people who would be willing to listen to you, hear your heart, and love on you through whatever it is you're going through. And this podcast right here is the proof. Um, I'm here for you if you need to talk for real. Um, and to the family members who are there, just don't be afraid, don't be ashamed to say, man, I don't really know what to say to this kid. Don't be afraid to have a marriage and family therapist come in and give you some tools to have some difficult conversations, to help you navigate that. You don't have to feel like you got to have all the answers. I'm figuring this out. I'm 42 now, and I'm figuring out stuff that I was struggling with when I was 6. You know? Jordan says, "I feel like you're looking right at me right now." Man, I'm talking about me, Jordan. I'm glad that our paths have crossed the year of my life. Um, but yeah, I'm sharing this because I know that my experience is not unique to me. It's my sure it's a one of one in that everybody's not going through the same thing at the same time. But I know that I'm not the only one who felt like that. And um, Jordan's a great friend of mine. Met him through one of my elementary school friends. They both of them in the Air Force, and they were stationed together. And one of the things I know about Jordan is that he's incredible, loving, and present father. You know, so I really do have a soft spot in my heart for people like him. Who are there for their kids, who celebrate them, who love on them. I watched Jordan post his kids so much. Every time I FaceTime him, I get to see Amelia popping in and being a little diva, you know. And I love you, brother, and I'm proud of you for being there. You're just watching you be there heals my soul a little bit. Um, so whatever you've thought about you, I am motivated and inspired by the love you have for your family. I think it's a beautiful thing. Absolutely beautiful. So if everybody's good, any other comments or questions? I'll probably go ahead and wrap up. Um, like I said, I'll get this posted to Spotify podcast, Broken, the number for this, all one word. You can go in there and you can check this out anytime you'd like to. Share it with a family member if you're dealing with something. Um, if you've got some people in your life that you think might benefit from this, let them listen. I'm not gonna. There's no ask at the end of this. Like, I don't have there's no cash app for this or anything like that. I'm not trying to make money off this platform. Just trying to create an environment where people can come together and have these kind of conversations, so we can start healing, man. Because as a pastor, I got to do my work so that I'm not bleeding on y'all. Y'all didn't cut me. It's not fair for me to project my issues onto you. So I don't want to do that. I want to be a good role model. I want to be a good man to you. And the fact that I dealt with some challenges in my life as it relates to my father does not give me an excuse to be a mess. So I am. Love you, Jordan, man. Yeah, that's the homie, Jordan. Um, I'm gonna go ahead and call it a day then. On that, we'll go ahead and end in this session. Um, the week after next, my therapist Stephanie suggested that I do these about every 2 weeks. It gives me some time to kind of process the emotions that pop up, and then to work through them if I need to, and then to prep for the next one. So let me see what the next one is. I haven't even thought about it. Ooh, birthday promises. So in a couple of weeks, it'll be about I think it's my 7th birthday. Um, when Dad finally called, and it's interesting. It was interesting. So be praying for me. If you know me, check on me in the next couple of days. This is a whole lot to share. It's a lot to be this transparent about. I just know it's necessary. I don't want to say that I want to do it. I'm not doing it under duress. Nobody's making me, but I do feel driven to do it. But if you know me, check on me in the next few hours, the next couple of days, because I just know that it's a heavy situation that I'm dealing with. And even though I feel good about it, um, I know I'm going ahead and tell you right now that I need your support as much as you need mine. All right. So again, it's another broken for this production. Um, it's There we go. Why don't we remove that one? There we go. Where we are teaching you, helping you to heal, learn, and grow. No matter what you've been through, there's still, you don't have to give up. You don't have to just be flawed. You don't have to think little of yourself. God can still use you. And this child who thought that he would never be anything because he came from a weird, broken family. Now I'm a pastor, a husband, you know, a leader in a lot of ways, and kind of a spiritual and father to people. Who knew? So let my story be a motivator to you. Let me be the example that you can be, that you are more than what happened to you. All right. If you want to tell your story on Broken for This, hit me up. I've been tapping out, reaching out to my friends, a couple of them. So be listening for it in the next little while, probably in the next week or so. My friend John and I are going to talk with you. Um, he's got a great story and he's a therapist now. I don't know what we're going to talk about. Every time John and I sit down, it feels like a podcast episode. So be listening for that one as it comes up in the next little while. And brokenforthis@gmail.com if you want to talk to me, if you need someone to talk to listen to, or you can send me a message on Facebook. I'm here for you, or leave a comment and I'll get back to you. And again, if you would like to have this, the letter that I read, I'm happy to send it to you in a Word doc so that you can, maybe be a conversation piece for you and your family. So you can start dealing with some of this stuff. And when the book is published, obviously I'll tell you guys so that you guys can go out there and get it. I intend to self-publish. And it's mostly just to help, help people like me deal with some of that stuff. Yeah. So thank you guys so much. I love you. There's nothing you can do about it. And I will see you on the next episode of Broken for This. God bless you guys. Bye bye.